The three earliest things I can remember being a fan of are Power Rangers, X-Men, and my favorite superhero of all time, Superman. If I had to guess why I gravitated so much to Superman, it's probably because he had all the powers, and I probably thought he had a bad outfit. But as far as to why I'm still a fan of the character today, maybe it's because I see Superman as a kind of representation of what humanity can be and not what it often is. Superman has super strength, ice breath, can fly, can run fast, heat vision, X-ray vision.
Okay, ready.
Ooh, on second thought, I got something I gotta do back on Krypton.
I thought Krypton was destroyed.
I think we should see other people.
Damn. Shoot a tiny version of himself out of his hand? Why the hell don't they bring this back? And instead of using these powers to take over the world and become some kind of crazed dictator, he uses them to help his fellow man. Instead of abusing his powers to become some arrogant psychopath, he's a mild-mannered, dorky Boy Scout from Kansas.
Here you go, friend.
Thanks. Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
Shady better than me. First thing I'm doing if I have Superman's powers is getting the weebs out of here. They've had it too good for too long. Is it too late now to say sorry? That kind of character just speaks to me, you know? Don't get me wrong, I like anti-heroes. Wolverine is probably my second or third favorite superhero. But there's something just kind of comforting about a character that will always try to do the right thing, no matter how tempting it gets to do the wrong thing. So, you know, I get a little passionate when it comes to how he's represented in media. As of the time I'm making this video, which is early January, the James Gunn directed Superman movie, which is also supposed to be the first cinematic entry into the DCU, is set to come out July 11th, 2025. So, I decided to do a little project. A little series, if you will. A saga, if you're nasty. I'm going to review every single Superman movie that got a theatrical release. Now, my criteria for this series is that it features Supes in a major role, which means movies that have other main characters like Justice League will fall under this umbrella. To start with, we're going to go all the way back to... So I haven't watched this movie since I was like maybe 6 or 7, so this will basically be like watching it for the first time again. First off, these are the greatest opening credits of all time. Drawing curtains in the actual movie, opening on a kid reading a Superman comic, kinda in a way preparing the audience for the kind of movie they're about to get into. Then, we pan into one of the panels into giant names flying at the screen, scored by this absolute banger of a theme song. Hey, John Williams, you cooked with this one. Imagine Warner Brothers is like, hey, Mr. Williams, we need a theme song for the Superman picture, nothing too crazy, keep in mind it's a comic book movie. And my guy is like, I bet. Alright, so the movie is basically split up into 3 parts. Krypton, Smallville, and Metropolis. The first part is pretty cool. Krypton just feels alien. Everything is made out of crystals. Everyone is wearing these Helly Hansen-ass bodysuits. Feels very 70s, 80s sci-fi. Kind of like old school Dune. Jor-El, Superman's dad, is helping to put these totally unimportant characters that definitely won't come back on trial for trying to perform a coup. Topical.
You will bow down before me! Both you, and then one day, your ass!
Boy, that guy was dramatic, doing all that damn yelling. That's why he only got like 2 minutes in this movie. Those guys get sent to the Phantom Zone where I'm sure they'll never be heard from again. Anyway, Jor-El's like, hey, so climate change is real, and it's probably gonna blow up Krypton, and we should probably do something about that. And the Krypton government is like,
shut up, bitch.
So Jor-El puts Baby Clark on a ship, and it takes 3 years for him to finally land on Earth and be found by the Kents. Overall, a great intro to Superman's origins. Great set design, solid atmosphere, and even though Marlon Brando isn't my favorite Jor-El, and apparently he was kind of hard to work with on set, he refused to learn his lines, so they had to use cue cards. And at one point, he even wanted Jor-El to be a talking bagel. His performance worked for me. He felt like a beleaguered scientist trying to save his planet and then just his kid from what he knows is inevitable.
He'll be fast. Virtually invulnerable.
Isolated. Alone.
He will not be alone. He will never be alone.
Plus, this was post-Godfather Brando, so he lent his credibility to what was probably seen at the time as just a comic book movie, before comic book movies became huge blockbusters. Next part is the Smallville years. This section of the movie was actually pretty lacking. I'm pretty sure it was the shortest part of the movie. We don't really get to see Clark figure out his powers or how to control them. He's already very aware of his powers and a high school senior. Hey, also, look at how my dude is running. Why is he swinging his arms like that, bruh? Why can't any DC superhero run like a normal person?
Golly! I saw a boy out there run as fast as the train! Faster even!
Lois Lane, you have a writer's gift for invention.
Wait, that's Lois? What is the age gap here? Another big issue with this part is the lack of development with his parents. Mom and Pa Kent are barely in this movie, and we really only get a few bits of dialogue with them. We get an idea of the way he was raised from like one convo.
You know, you can do all these amazing things, and sometimes you think that you will just go bust unless you can tell people about it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, every time I get the football, I can make a touchdown.
That's for sure.
Every time.
Yeah.
I mean, is it showing off and somebody's doing the things he's capable of doing? Is
No.
a bird showing off when it flies?
No. No, now you listen to me. When you first came to us, we thought that people would come and take you away because when they found out, you know, the things you could do, and that worried us a lot. But then a man gets older and he thinks very differently and things get very clear. And there's one thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason.
But I really think they could have done a better job showing us how Clark became the type of guy who would never use his powers just to benefit himself. Also, Pa Kent dies in his second ever scene.
Jonathan!
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people.
Now, there is another Superman movie out there with a kind of controversial Pa Kent death scene, and I'll talk about it more in depth there when I get to it. But most of the time when Pa Kent dies, it's from a heart attack. Like here, which I feel really works. The whole point is that it affects Clark so much that he's the most powerful being on the planet, and he still wouldn't have been able to save his father from something as simple as a heart attack. After Pa Kent dies, Clark takes this crystal, goes to Antarctica, and finds the Fortress of Solitude, which is the same thing an incel calls his bedroom. Clark finds a responsive simulation of his bio dad that gives him a crash course on his backstory and basically the history of everything else in the world. This lasts for 12 years, and he was still able to get a job with the Daily Planet? Man, the 70s was fire, bro. You didn't even need to get a degree to get a reporter job.
Olson, why am I paying you $40 a week when I should have you arrested for loitering? Go get Mr.
Kent.
A towel. Move, kid, move. Right, Chief.
Wait, Jimmy's only getting paid $40 a week? That nigga better seize the means of production. Now we're in the bulk of the movie. The Megalopolis... The Megalopolis part. Not the Megalopolis part. That's a very different movie.
So go back to the club.
Now we're in the bulk of the movie, the Metropolis part. I feel like they did a really good job here of establishing the two lives of Clark Kent and Superman. A running joke online is, how could anyone be fooled by this big-ass journalist wearing glasses when he's so clearly Superman? And, well, okay, y'all kind of have a point, but part of the disguise is that Clark is such a mild-mannered, clumsy, well-meaning dork that no one would ever believe this dude could save anyone or fight anything.
I realize, of course, that times are tough for some these days, but this isn't the answer. You can't solve society's problems with a gun.
You know something, buddy? You're right. I'm gonna turn over a new leaf.
Good for you, sir. That's the spirit. See, he doesn't really want to hurt anybody.
Uh-huh.
Right after I rip off this lady's purse.
Of course.
Also, I mean, it's the comic book, guys. It's not that big of a deal. In a pretty cool moment, he even pretends to faint during a robbery while also actually saving Lois from getting shot. Okay, side note, I'm pausing this for a second. This is totally off script. What was Lois's plan here? Like, she drops her purse on the ground, which is admittedly kind of badass, but then, like, she kicks the robber in the face and then just puts her hands up against the wall with no kind of defense or nothing. Like, was she just expecting Clark to automatically jump in front of the bullet? Which, don't get me wrong, would be, like, a very heroic thing to do, but at the same time, it kind of, like, fucked up to put him in that position. I don't know, it's just a weird thing that came to mind while I was editing and, like, looking at the movie footage again. I don't know. Sorry, just continue. Me. So he finally introduces himself to Metropolis by flying around saving people all night. A lot of shit goes down in Metropolis, I guess. Within just a few hours, there's multiple robberies, a plane crash, his love interest almost dying in an out-of-control helicopter.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
And a cat in a tree.
Mommy! Risky was stuck in the tree. This man swooped out of the sky and gave him to me. Haven't I told you to stop telling lies?
Emotional damage!
The relationship between Lois and Clark and Superman, in general, is done really well. Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder have really good chemistry with each other. And you can tell from how long the interview scene is with them.
Lark, who's that, your boyfriend?
Clark? Oh, Clark. No, he's nothing. He's just a...
Peter Pan, huh?
Uh-huh.
Peter Pan flew with children, Lois. In a fairy tale.
The scene where Superman and Lois are flying through the air is arguably this movie's most iconic scene, and it's obvious to see why. This nigga got the sauce.
You don't know what you did to me. Your body language speaks to me.
Since we're already here, I may as well talk about the flying effects. Now, you do have to keep in mind, this movie came out in 1978, which of course is basically the Stone Age. Look at how they were moving. They didn't even have Fortnite dances yet.
Now from the top, make it drop. That's some wet ass pussy. Now get a bucket and a mop. That's some wet ass pussy.
But honestly, for how limited they may have been when it came to filmmaking techniques back in the day, I don't think it looks too bad. Didn't age super well, but for what it was, it's fine. This part where Lois is doing this like weird spoken word poetry in her mind while they're flying is kind of weird though.
Can you read my mind? Do you know what it is that you do to me? I don't know who you are. Just a friend from another star.
I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. Sometimes I did the same, abusing my power full of resentment.
Look at this man's face, bro. He knows he's got her sprung. Hey, Clark really in love though, for real. His space pops told him not to tell anyone his secret identity, and he's about ready to tell Lois after knowing her for like 2 days. Now let's talk about a major part of this movie, the villain, Lex Luthor. So, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I don't really like Gene Hackman's version of Lex Luthor. I think he did a good job playing the role that was written for him. It's just that the role wasn't Lex Luthor.
It's kind of a cruel justice about it. I mean, to commit the crime of the century, a man would just naturally want to face the challenge of the century.
Listen, Mr. Luthor, maybe this guy that flies is just sort of passing through, you know?
Passing through. Not on your life, which I would gladly sacrifice, by the way, for the opportunity of destroying everything that he represents.
Huh?
Lex Luthor, I know, is suave, Machiavellian, collected until you piss him off.
After years of pleading with my father to show me some compassion, he turned to you with open arms. Now, what would a worldly billionaire have in common with a simple farm boy?
This guy feels like a Batman 66 villain. I mean, look at his drip. He's dressed like the 6th Doctor or something. He spends most of his time in his weird underground subway lair with his polyamorous partners Miss Tessmacher and Otis, the best Superman character ever, just hanging around vaguely hating on Superman. His plan is to buy up a bunch of useless desert land in California, steal some missiles from the armed forces during a missile test, and then use them to blow up huge parts of California and make a new coastline that he owns.
Costa del X, Lutherville, Marina del X, Otisburg. Otisburg?
Where's this monster? She's got her own place, Mr.
Otisburg?
It's a little bitty place.
Otisburg?
Which, as far as plans from supervillains go, is somehow both evil and kinda meh? Like, in theory, I should be horrified that he wants to blow up a whole ass state, but I don't know, there's just something about his demeanor that makes me not take it seriously. Nigga, he's not even bald. That's like the major characteristic of Lex Luthor, and they didn't even do that. Gene Hackman didn't want to shave his hair for the role. Weird how often this happens to DC characters. So he's wearing a wig for most of the movie until the very end where he just rips it off his head for no reason.
Lex Luthor, greatest criminal mind of our time.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I don't even think he really hates Superman like that. I think he mostly just sees him as a potential annoyance. Like he lures Supes to his lair using the old using a signal only you and dogs can hear trick.
This is Lex Luthor. Only one thing alive with less than 4 legs can hear this frequency, Superman, and that's you.
You're done. Don't call me. I'm like T.I. What he saying, A.T.I.? I don't want to kick it with you. I don't want to skate with you. I don't want to do nothing. Because now it's on. I got a record I'm about to drop today that I already pre-recorded because I knew you was going to come up, fumble up on some bullshit.
Then once he shows up, he distracts him by monologuing about his plan. I mean, by the time Superman shows up, he's already bought up all the property, stolen the missiles, and kryptonite to kill Supes. He's basically in the final stage of the plan. Maybe it's because there wasn't any real build-up to it? I don't know. The closest thing we get to a build-up is we do see how he stole the missiles, which was easier than you'd think. All you need is someone to fake an accident and another person to sneak under a vehicle, apparently.
I have to go. He's having trouble breathing, sir. What do you think?
Well, I suggest vigorous chest massage. If that doesn't work, mouth to mouth.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant, I won't have one of my men doing anything I wouldn't be prepared to do myself.
Yeah, but sir,
Get an ambulance. All right, men, gather around.
Hey, you know they got your mans. They got your mans on sex assault charges.
But you know what? All that being said, he's still my favorite part of the movie. I know it don't really make sense, because I just spent the last few minutes kind of shitting on him a little bit. But at the same time, he's really funny. I don't know, every single interaction he has with a character is funny as shit.
What'd you do? Well, I set the first directional vector to 38, the second one to 67, and the third one to 117.
What about the fourth one?
What fourth? I wrote it down, Mr. Luthor. I wrote
Otis! Otis! The third one was supposed to be 11, and the fourth one's 7.
Gee, Mr. Luthor. Oh, I see. I guess my arm wasn't long enough. See,
Otis, would you like to see a long arm? Otis, would you like to see a very, very long arm?
No, Mr. Luthor.
Otis!
No.
Now you might be thinking, well, back in the day, Lex wasn't really much of a businessman anyway. In the comics, he was a mad scientist. He would steal cakes and shit. But this Lex doesn't even really feel like a mad scientist. He feels like a sleazy car salesman or something. In the final parts of the movie, Superman is pretty much flying around trying to stop Lex's plan, saving school buses and trains, fixing dams, redirecting the missiles, saving Jimmy and Lois, all the classic Superman things. Oh, wait. Lois dies? What? This is the first movie, bro. You can't have the love interest die in the first movie. That's insane. Man, they were wilding back in the day. I mean, how do you even... Okay, yeah, you know what happens. Soup screams, and then he flies around the world a bunch of times to go back in time. Sure. Okay. And then he saves Lois. Alright, I'm not gonna go into the logic about how, flying around the world a bunch of times makes you go back in time. But I do feel like Lois potentially dying would work better if this happened in a later movie or something. I also found it interesting that one of Jor-El's rules was to not change human history, and Clark said, fuck all of that, over someone he's known for like maybe a week or two.
My son, it is forbidden for you to interfere in human history.
One thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason.
All those things I can do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him.
This is a series of 4 movies, and they filmed Superman 2 at the same time as this one, so maybe it'll come back into play later. I guess DC superheroes really like fucking around with time travel. So yeah, Soup saves California, drops Luxoff in jail, and flies into space for the money shot.
I want you to be mine again, baby. I know my lifestyle is driving you crazy.
Overall, I like the movie, but I think one of my biggest problems is that Clark doesn't really have much of a character arc. Sure, he was able to save his dad, and that informed his decision to save Lois, but he doesn't really change that much as a character. He starts out the story as a baby, then a teenager who loses his dad for like 15 minutes, and then for the rest of the movie, he's pretty much a fully formed Superman. This movie kind of feels more like a prologue for the rest of the series, you know? As an intro to the character, it's fine, but as a standalone story, it's kind of lacking. It doesn't even really feel like a story as much as it does a sequence of events happening, leading up to, oh, here's Lex Luthor and here's his plan, Superman has to stop him. I really like Lois though. I almost forgot what it was like to have a Lois Lane that is an active character and has a smart-ass personality. My favorite character, obviously, is Otis. I mean, how could it not be?
Otis, take the gentleman's cape.
I don't think he wants me to, Mr. Luthor.
We need more Otis representation in everything Superman. Last but not least, the costume.
Hey, Jim! Whoa!
Excuse me.
That's a bad outfit!
I mean, it's iconic, it's pretty much what he wears in the comics. It is pretty goofy looking, but I mean, it was the 70s, bro. You know, it fits with the tone of the movie. Let Clark have his Fashion Nova bodysuit and cape, man. Speaking of the tone, I think that might be my favorite aspect of this movie. It's uplifting, it's hopeful, it just makes you feel good. It's everything a Superman movie should be. It's easy to see how this movie not only inspired a generation of filmgoers that a man could fly, but also inspired future superhero movies. Rating the movies in this series feels kind of weird because I mostly just want to talk about how they make me feel as a lifelong Superman fan, but if I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's very much a product of its time, but it's an impressive one. Really looking forward to the rest of these, except maybe that one. Hey, so yeah, it's been a long time since we've uploaded on this channel, a little bit of a channel update. Yeah, I've been holding back on the blurbs a little bit, just kind of focusing on preparing for this series, which is, of course, gonna go on for a while, you know, leading up to the new Superman movie. But this is something that I'm really passionate about, because like I said, Superman is my favorite superhero of all time. So, you know, I really want to do a good job with this and, you know, focus my attention on this. I'm still planning to do the top 5 best and worst movies of 2024, of course. I do still want to do that big Madam Web movie. That big Madam Web video. So yeah, next video should be the top 5 best and worst movies of 2024. We'll see if that can come out either by the end of January or the beginning of February, and then after that should be the Superman 2 video. And, you know, we'll see how this series goes. So, like, comment, subscribe, of course. Comment below how you feel about Superman. Do you agree with me, you know, or do you disagree with me? Tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right, you know, whatever. Just comment how you feel, say anything, I don't know. Discuss it amongst yourselves in the comment section, you know. And that's it. Peace.